Back to another episode of the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. My name is Sam, and boy, oh boy, even though it's been a long time no see, I am excited to dive right in to this draft class. The NFL draft ended yesterday, and rather than kind of breaking down day one, breaking down day two, I decided to do, hey, let's do one big comprehensive kind of outlook. It is Sunday morning here in Connecticut. I'm in a great mood. I woke up in a great mood, especially on Friday morning after night one. On night two, after night two, yesterday morning, I woke up in an even better mood, even though I had to work, but whatever, it's fine. I woke up in a good mood still because I'm really thrilled about how this draft goes. Without tipping too much about how I graded some picks, what I think about some guys, I'm very excited for how this draft went. I'm going to gush over this draft class in this, and I'm going to kind of do a pick by pick breakdown, give each player a letter grade. I gave each player kind of a 1 through 100 score, and then I would just give them the letter grade off of that. So yeah, I'm just really excited to break this down. Let's get going here, and let's start at 18. The draft was a weird draft. The Seahawks going in, I think, knew that most people thought that this draft wasn't very good. And that being said, they still managed to have a pretty exciting draft. I'll break that down at the end too. But Zabel, um, at 18, Gray Zabel, the guard out of North Dakota State University. This is my guy. This is the guy I was pounding the table for. At first, early on in the process, I thought Armand Membu was my guy. And he still was my guy. I think Armand Membu is going to be like a serious dog. I like him a lot. I think his measurables are very good. I think his flexibility along the offensive line is great. I think the Jets got a really good pick there. I think Membu has the potential to be like a perennial Pro Bowl right or left tackle. So, regardless, after it became very clear that Membu was not going to make it to 18, Gray Zabel became my guy. The Senior Bowl superstar who played essentially every position at the Senior Bowl, essentially matched up against every player at the Senior Bowl, and essentially did not lose a single rep at the Senior Bowl. Um, you know, at 18, I think the Seahawks, I don't know what the Seahawks process was because I don't think Gray Zabel was the best player on their board. I think Zabel is more so, he was the best interior offensive lineman and he was close enough to the top of their board where they didn't have to overshoot it by a lot. I think if Zabel was like the fifth person on their board, and he was the best interior offensive lineman, they might have said, hey, we're just going to go for someone else. But I think Zabel might have been like two or three. I think it's much easier for John Schneider to justify, therefore, going after a guy like Gray Zabel at 18 and finally doing what the fans have always wanted, going after offensive line, especially interior offensive line, which he has really never done. People will say like, oh, James Carpenter was a first round pick and all that, but James Carpenter was drafted as a tackle and was forced to kick into guard. So, I don't really count that. This is the first player that the Seahawks have picked in the first round that has been announced specifically as a guard. That is very exciting. And Zabel is a very exciting player. Uber athletic, a 99 percentile athlete, 99th percentile athlete, a guy who had a huge rising process and all these concerns about, well, small school, North Dakota State. North Dakota State has been breeding offensive linemen for a long time. And I think there's the argument to be made that Zabel is the best of all of them. He's so athletic. He's so big. He's quick. He is fast. He's going to kick in probably at left guard day one, although center flexibility is always there as well as tackle. Even though his arm length isn't really suited for tackle, if you need one in an emergency, I don't see why not. I don't see why he can't kick into tackle or kick over. But Zabel is the definition of it, just picking the player that will make you feel safe at night. The Seahawks could have picked Jahad Campbell, or they could have picked, someone like that, someone with freaky upside, or they could have picked Matthew Golden, whatever. Guys who are uber kind of athletic and have these really high ceilings. Yes, 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 I understand. But As far as like going to bed on Thursday night after that draft and knowing, hey, Gray Zabel is a Seahawk and he is comfortably the going to be the best guard on this team the second he walks into that building. Very exciting. I think Zabel is a home run pick. Now, if I have any complaints, I would have to say probably value is there somewhat. I think in a perfect world, you land Zabel at 22 or 23 in a trade back. But I'm not going to complain about picking him at 18. I think he was the best fit for the Seahawks. I think he makes the most sense for the Seahawks. And I gave this pick an A. There's no other way for me to grade it than an A. Zabel is my guy. He lands with my team, the number one need. Get it done. Simple, easy, awesome money. Now, at the end of day two, or at the end of day one, John Schneider goes up for his press conference, and Brian Nemhauser, shout out Hawk Blogger, asks him a question about, hey, the draft were you surprised about how the draft fell at all today? And John Schneider, starts talking, and John is not good at like not showing his hand. He always kind of lets in on something, and he doesn't really mean it. Doesn't mean to do it. It just kind of comes out. But he's talking, and he's like, oh, yeah, well, the board was this and that, and then he goes, there's still some players. I'm actually gonna stop myself. Everyone caught that. They were all like, what was he about to say right there? And what I interpret and what everyone interpreted is, hey, he probably was going to say there are some players on our board who we like, who we thought would be gone by now, or who we thought were going to be surefire first round picks who are still on the board. And that made my ears perk up. The Seahawks had 4 day 2 picks going in. I knew that a trade up was a possibility. And lo and behold, that's what they did. The Seahawks jumped up from pick 52. So they used they used the later of the second round picks, and they used the earlier of the third round picks, pick 82, to jump up to pick 35 at the top of the second round with the Tennessee Titans to select Nick Emenwari, the safety out of South Carolina. Now, let me tell you, boys, how I'm feeling about this one. I love this pick. This pick, spoiler alert, gets the highest grade of all. I thought Emenwari was going to be a surefire first round pick. His athleticism is through the roof, and it's not necessarily an athleticism that's like, well, you watch it and on tape, it's like, okay, well, yeah, okay, yeah, he's moving well and all that, uh, but and it's not like, oh well, but he's not really playing well. He's just super athletic. No, this guy's a first team All American at South Carolina this year and is the single most athletic safety according to Raz score in the history of measurement. Think about that. The history of measurement, he is the most athletic safety to ever play in the NFL. He steps in day one. Everybody thought this could also be a first round pick, came in for a top 30 visit. This is a guy who a lot of people are saying, well, this is the clear cut Kyle Hamilton role, the kind of player that they used Rayshawn Jenkins for last year. Obviously, did not end up working out. This is what Emenwari is going to step in as. I believe Mike McDonald said he was going to start as a nickel, which makes sense. Like nickel packages, so you can come in, kind of slot in the box there and use that speed and use his physicality to really wreak havoc, especially in the run game. I think the run game is going to be much better. Um, and I mean, run defense is going to be much better with him on the field. I think that's just how he plays. But Emenwari is an absolute home run pick, an absolute home run pick. This is a guy who, I mean, outside of one player, has the highest ceiling in the draft. He has the ceiling to be like a top 5 safety in the NFL, maybe even the best. That is the upside that you're picking here. But it's also the type of pick where I don't think the floor is out of the league in 2 years. I think regardless, he's going to step in as a good enough player to see meaningful snaps day one. The question is, like, will he be able to develop into that kind of like perennial Pro Bowl safety that he absolutely has the ceiling to be? Everybody immediately started comparing him to Cam Chancellor. He changed his picture to the he changed his Twitter profile picture to the LOB. So, a lot of excitement around Nick Emenwari. This pick gets an A plus from me. This pick is so great. I love, like, I would have, like, You can ask my brother. I know he's not here, but I'm just saying. So I don't look like I'm like lying after the fact, like LeBron or anything, saying like he knew Kobe was going to drop 80. Um, but if it wasn't Gray's Abel at 18, I wanted him and Worry, and you get both. That is an absolute home run, an absolute slam dunk draft. Slight overpay to get up, but it's fine. You have the picks to allow you to kind of overpay a little bit. And Emin Worry, it makes you leave this draft, and you're like, I think we got two first round picks. I think we got two first round pick players in this draft. That is extremely exciting. And I think Emin Worry is going to be a super interesting weapon to see how Mike McDonald uses him and deploys him on that defense. Now moving on to pick 50, a little bit of a wait, 15 pick slide until the Seahawks went. And this was a position that we all knew the Seahawks could go. They brought in a couple tight ends on visits. They talked a lot about tight ends. I thought Mason Taylor, he was kind of slipping a little bit. I think he went to like 42 or 43. So ultimately, the Seahawks were going to have to pick someone else. The Rams took a tight end. So the Seahawks end up taking Elijah Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami. I gave this pick a B minus. Not because Arroyo's a bad player. I think Arroyo's tape is extremely interesting. He's super athletic. You can really easily see the comp to Noah Fant there. Sure hands. I remember he had a pretty good Senior Bowl week. Very fluid mover for his size. I believe he's like 6'4", 6'5", 240, 240, 250-ish. So he's a big guy, but he's a very fluid mover, good route runner, a real weapon that Clint Kubiak can deploy. We had kind of talked about, hey, like tight end is going to be a big part of this offense. You're going to need a fluid receiving tight end to be able to get out. I think Arroyo is that guy. I think Arroyo has the upside to be a legitimately great tight end at the NFL level. There are just more concerns for him, in my opinion, with his game. Not really a great blocker, kind of more of a natural receiver. He's going to have to learn how to put his hands on people and get down and dirty, kind of in the trenches, like George Kittle did, and Juwan Johnson does for the Saints, both places where Clint Kubiak has coached. He's going to have to learn to do that. So, that's not a strength that he's going to be asked to do a lot. So, that kind of sucks when you have to, balance it out. Maybe it was kind of like, hey, this guy's the last tight end on the board before the board kind of falls off a little bit. Let's snag him as a value pick rather than as a player who maybe is the best player available for us. But, Arroyo is a pretty good player. And I think he's going to fit well. I think he's going to have a day one role. Durability is another problem. So, ultimately at the end of the day, this pick being where it was, I thought there were some better fits. Like if we took Jalen Noel or like a Jared Wilson. I know Jared Wilson ended up falling a lot, but I think those guys would have made me a bit more like, okay, yeah, this is a pretty good pick. I thought Arroyo could have been kind of more in the 60s. He didn't really test much. But according to Jeremy Fowler, a lot of teams had this guy as a top 15 to 20 talent if it wasn't for the injuries. So we have to see how it's going to work out. Obviously, the Seahawks like him a lot. I'm going to trust Clint Kubiak and his intuition on tight ends, and I ultimately gave this pick a B minus. So I'm still happy with it, but kind of compared to the other two, it doesn't really stack. Now going to 92, long drop. Seahawks had to wait 42 picks after trading pick 82. This is the Geno Smith trade pick from the Raiders. And on the board, Jared Wilson was on the board at this point. There were still some interesting receivers on the board, still some interesting O linemen on the board. I thought, well, okay, maybe this is where John kind of doubles up on O line. I really thought Jared Wilson could be the pick. Sean Alexander comes out and he says, "This is a family call right here." Thinking, what does he mean by family? Thinking, well, Sean Alexander went to Alabama. Could this be Jalen Milroe? And he's like, with the 92nd pick, Seattle Seahawks select my nephew, quarterback, Alabama, Jalen Milroe. Anyone that watched these videos knows I'm not a big Jalen Milroe guy. I don't think, especially day one, that he's ready to take over an NFL offense, especially one like a Kubiak Shanahan offense. I think he has a really long way to go to be a viable NFL starter. That being said, at pick 92, John Schneider put his balls on the table and took a guy who I think is a great pick at this value. Plain and simple, Jalen Milroe has the highest upside of any quarterback in this draft. Higher than Cam Ward, higher than Shedeur Sanders, who obviously had that big slip. I'm not really going to talk about it much because, frankly, I just don't care. I don't really care that much. Like, hey, the guy had attitude problems and teams didn't want to take him. Like, who cares, you know? But Milroe is a guy who renowned, phenomenal leader, uh, extremely hard worker, a guy that Nick Saban sung his praises for during the draft when he got picked. He was praising him a lot. Milroe is a guy who, like I said, has the highest upside. He's a quarterback that runs a 4.3 with a cannon arm. And those are just natural abilities that you can't take away. He runs a 4.3 40. He's the fastest. He was the fastest player for Alabama last year on that team, and he's a quarterback. And his running ability is extremely impressive. Now, that being said, as far as reading defenses goes and like being a realistic NFL passer, Milroe has a long way to go. He has a really long way to go. But at the end of the day, I was against Milroe in the second round. I was against Milroe, especially in the first round. At 92, essentially a fourth round pick. I mean, it was like four picks before the third round was over. Essentially a fourth round pick. You can't get much better at picking upside at the quarterback position than taking Jalen Milroe here. They had him in for a 30 visit. They know they like him. And the best thing about Milroe is, unlike a lot of these other quarterbacks that might have to sit and develop, like a Quinn Ewers, who went way later in the draft, or like a Dylan Gabriel, or hell, even like a Jackson Dart. Milroe is going to offer you upside day one in run packages, in kind of a Taysom Hilly type role early on. And Mike McDonald said, "Hey, listen, we didn't take him to be Taysom Hill. We took him to be a quarterback, and we're going to develop him as a quarterback." But yes, but that does not stop you from, in the short term, using Milroe and his speed in packages like you would at Taysom Hill. Let him drop back and throw a deep ball every once in a while, or let him run the ball. I could see him in a realistic world getting 5 to 10 snaps per game every game of the season. This is an exciting pick. And it's a pick that, if we're being honest, does not have a good chance to turn out. But at the end of the day, when you're picking at 92, especially when you're picking quarterback, like we were all criticizing John Schneider for taking a swing. Pick a quarterback, take a swing. You don't know what he's going to turn out to be. Pick a guy like Kyle McCord. Pick a guy like Dylan Gabriel. Take anyone. Just let him come in and see what he has. Taking a swing at 92 with a quarterback with this high of an upside in a fairly low pressure pick is extremely exciting. And even if he does not pan out as a quarterback, he offers you legs that no one else in the draft could. And frankly, not many in the NFL can. Like, outside of like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and all these guys, he is instantly a top 5 rushing quarterback in the NFL. And he will do that a lot. And the Seahawks will have packages ready for him because Clint Kubiak has taken that New Orleans playbook over here. And Taysom Hill, that role is going to need to be filled. So ultimately, I am extremely excited about Jalen Milroe. I gave this pick a B plus. I think it's great value, and the upside is too high to ignore at this pick. Ultimately, I think Milroe makes a lot of sense at 92 for the Seahawks. Take a swing, take a shot on a guy, and I appreciate John Schneider just saying, you know what, we're gonna take the quarterback. We brought him in for a visit. The upside's there. We're gonna pick him. I give them a B plus. Now, ultimately, now that we're kind of through the third round and we have 3/5, 1/6, and 3/7 to talk about, I'm going to kind of do a little, now that we're through these top four, I'm going to kind of talk a little faster about them. Um, and yeah, so let's start at 150, 142 in the fifth round. Riley Mills, the defensive end out of Notre Dame. This is a guy who, frankly, I hadn't heard of. Um, he's a guy who really I didn't know much about. He got hurt in the college football playoff, but was the leading sack and tackles for loss leader on Notre Dame. kind of a five tech three, not really a three tech, more so like a big end kind of run stuffer. It got injured, tore his ACL. However, according to his conference call, he's way ahead of schedule. He thinks he could be ready for training camp. Mills is really is a guy who, you know, like the value is questionable. A lot of these picks, if I give them a harsh grade, it's going to be because of value. Like, hey, like, could you have gotten maybe someone who is a bit higher upside here or anything like that? But they apparently Aiden Dirty was very adamant about Riley Mills, pounding the table for him. You can kind of see physically the comp to Demarcus Lawrence there, who's obviously on the team. So interesting to see how Mills contributes day one, kind of especially in early down run packages. I think he's going to be kind of a Mike Morris replacement who ultimately did not pan out, I think, the way Mike McDonald really wanted. He actually got replaced by Roy Robertson Harris midseason, who left in the offseason. So maybe Mills is that type of guy to replace that big end kind of production. Sorry. I ended up giving this pick a C. I like the player. I just question the value. I don't think he'll be ready for training camp, like he said. Players tend to be a bit more optimistic, but obviously the team doctors are fine with it. Then we'll see what happens. But I end up giving this pick a C. Round five, pick 166, the Seahawks select Torrey Horton, the wide receiver out of Colorado State. I gave this pick an A minus. A tremendous value. Horton is a guy who last year, if he came out, probably would have been a second or third round pick. Very athletic, very fast. A guy that the Seahawks don't really have right now, like low 4.4s, high 4.3s, kind of 40-yard dash. Watching his highlights, extremely fun player, solid hands, good route runner, very shifty, very quick, kind of long, very slender, kind of build wise, not necessarily play style wise, but build wise, kind of reminded me of like a Devontae Smith, the way he's kind of built, very slender, very slim. But this is a guy who I really liked. I thought he was sliding down the board a lot. He had some knee injuries this year that probably is why he's falling, but I think he found his place in Seattle. I think Horton is a guy who has the upside to contribute day one, especially with his speed. Now, will he probably be seeing starting wide receiver snaps? Who knows? That third wide receiver role is kind of up for the taking. Like whoever wants to go over and take that job, it's their job to take. I think is maybe the favorite to win it out of camp. So we will see what happens there. Oh no, I'm sorry. We have Marcus Valdez-Scantling. So Horton and Scantling actually are very similar. So that's also interesting to know. Scantling is only on a 1 year deal, but Horton does have the upside to contribute day one. So I'm excited about that, and I think A minus is the pick here. I like the upside. I think it's a good value pick in the fifth round. Going to pick 175, the Seahawks select fullback out of Alabama, Robbie Oots. Robbie Oots. You look up this guy if you haven't. When the Seahawks picked him, I said, who the hell is Robbie Oots? It's a tight end who's like 270 pounds. I'm like, oh, he's a fullback. Obviously, the Seahawks announced him as a fullback, but when you watch it on ESPN, it shows up as a tight end because that's what he's in their system as. Uh, Robbie Oots. Robbie Oots. This guy loves to hit. He's a big, thick guy, 270 pounds. Pat Ricard kind of build, both very big guys. Oots is a guy who loves to block at Alabama, was really liked by players there. So I guess the scouts fell in love with him because he took him in the fifth round, and I think he probably would have gone undrafted unless there's something I didn't know about him. I gave this pick a C minus. I like the player. I think he's a good fit. It's a fun fullback, but ultimately, I really question the value here. A fifth round pick is a valuable pick. I don't think it's a scenario where you're like, oh, okay, let's just take a fullback. I don't know. It's a little rich for my blood. I think he could. I think he would have been available at 192 or 223, or hell, I think he might have even gone undrafted, and you could have just signed him there. So we'll see how that pans out, but clearly they have big plans for him if they're willing to take him this early. Fills a big need on the team. Fullback was a huge gap in the squad. But yeah, C minus for me, just strictly off value. I like the player. Seems like he's gonna be a fun player. Seems like he might be a fan favorite. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I have to kind of be realistic here. Let's now move to round six, pick 192. The Seahawks select Bryce Cabledew, guard out of Kansas. This guy did not actually play at the combine or did not go to the combine, was not invited, but 6'5", played tackle in college, good tackle in college, very athletic, hyper athletic guard. I think that's really how you have to see these guys when you're picking in the sixth round. You either pick poor athletes that have high floors or you pick great athletes that have low floor, high ceiling. So Cable Dew is kind of low floor, high ceiling type of guy, very athletic, very quick. You could see there being a world where, hey, maybe if he can pack on some weight, pack on some muscle, get stronger, play strength stronger, I think Cable Dew could be a player that eventually might be in a guard conversation and could try to play. But either way, he offers guard and tackle flexibility. A good pick here at 192, had him in for a top 30 visit. I like the physical upside there. I think he has a chance to really, at least be good depth, which the Seahawks need. Take offensive linemen just for depth and let them develop behind the scenes. So I gave this pick a B. Damian Martinez, the running back out of Miami, kind of big bruiser back here. A big guy. I believe he's like 6 foot, 220, 230. We'll go watch his highlights too. If you're going to watch any highlights from day three, it's got to be Torrey Horton and Damian Martinez, two guys who are just extremely fun to watch in opposite ways. Horton is kind of a gazelle out there. Martinez is kind of a bull. Very strong runner, very physical. A lot of comps to Marshawn in a lot of weird ways. Does Martinez have the potential to really play a lot year one? Probably not. But will he probably make the team as a fourth running back, and will he probably offer some upside in short distance, in the short distance run game? Yeah, I think Martinez has that upside, and I think it's a great value pick. Once again, running backs are always good to take in this zone because they pan out a lot at this point. So I gave Martinez pick a B plus. I like Martinez a lot. I think he's a really talented player. You can't really give a fourth string running back an A, but value wise, this pick is an A. So I had to kind of balance it out, had to be realistic with my seventh round grades. At 234, the Seahawks select Mason Richman, tackle out of Iowa. Never heard of this guy. Kind of a smaller tackle. They do say he projects to be kind of a swing tackle for them. So ultimately, the Seahawks finished this draft with three offensive linemen. Kind of cool thing, Gray Zabel and him trained this offseason, and Zabel showed up at the building while they were calling him, and he actually uh, gave the draft call to Richmond. He said, "Hey, this is Gray Zabel. How's it going, man?" And that was cool. So yeah, fun thing. Offensive line depth never hurts anyone. I think Richmond is a guy who realistically doesn't have the upside to pan out as a super skilled, tackle. He's kind of small. He's average athleticism, but depth never hurts. I gave this pick a straight up C, right down the middle C. Average pick, doesn't hurt anyone. And at pick 238, the Seahawks took Ricky White, the third wide receiver out of UNLV. I gave this pick a B too. Ricky White offers some upside at receiver, but also as a special teamer. This guy is one of the best special teams players in the country. And I'm not talking about special teamer like returning kicks, which Torrey Horton does do well. I gave uh he is a Matthew Slater type. This stat blew my mind. He blocked 4 punts last year, which was more than any other entire team had in college football. Think about that. He blocked more punts by himself than any other team in Division One college football last year. Crazy stat. Offers upside at special teams and wide receiver. Good player here. Good high floor type of player where either way he has the potential to contribute on special teams, and you can never have enough good special teams players. So Ricky White the third, I gave a B as well to kind of round out this draft. Um, I think one of the main takeaways that I had looking at this draft is how much the red zone and short yardage offense is going to be better this year. I think that was a huge part of what the Seahawks were looking for in this draft. I think they wanted to get someone who realistically, or they want to get players who realistically would make this team more efficient in red zone, short yardage situations in which the Seahawks were one of the worst, if not the worst team in the NFL last year at several different points. It cost them a lot of games and a lot of points by not being better in that spot. So to take Gray Zabel, a guy who obviously offensive line is going to help the trenches, help the run game in short yardage. Elijah Arroyo, sure hands, big bodied tight end who actually had a touchdown in the red zone in the Senior Bowl. And then you have Jalen Milrow, a guy who I can only imagine how much fun they're going to have bringing him in for wildcat sets and read option sets in the red zone in short yardage. I think this draft is really good, guys. Like John Schneider managed to take a boring draft and pick a mix of chalk and exciting. Like to go back and forth between Gray Zabel, chalk and also exciting. To Nicky Manwari, very exciting. To Elijah Arroyo, kind of chalk, but good, a good player. To Jalen Milroe, very exciting. You go Riley Mills, chalk. Torrey Horton, exciting. Robbie Oots, chalk. It goes back and forth. So, really, I'm excited. I think John Schneider had a terrific draft, and I think there's not much we could have asked more from him to do with the picks he had. He was aggressive in trading up for Nicky Manwari. He was aggressive in getting the guard at 18 and Gray Zabel. He was aggressive in finding a quarterback in the top 3 rounds with huge upside. There's no other way to say this. John Schneider and the Seahawks get an A for this draft. I can't be more excited. I think the upside is there. I think the floor is also there. And I think that they have picked regardless, I think that at the top three, they have players that will be legitimate contributors day one. And then Milroe is a guy who has potential to be an elite quarterback if he can develop a lot. But either way, he's going to be a great runner throughout his entire career and will add something. And then you go Riley Mills, a guy who I think could contribute year one if he's healthy. Torrey Horton, who could contribute. Robbie Oots, who will definitely contribute. A really good draft here by the Seahawks. And I really have nothing else to say than great job, John Schneider, for getting what the team needed and going out there and filling the needs and drafting great players and making a boring draft, but by most standards, a fun one. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.